So there's Dan. That's who I started with. And then I had Carl and you, Nada.
Yeah.
And as soon as and when I got that, then all of a sudden I started getting hints on both of you. And part of it is because of birth dates being long enough ago. You can get hints for censuses in 1940. The 1950 census hasn't been released yet because it's every 70 years. So this in 2021, all the 1950 censuses will come in. But for you guys, for Carl, there was a 1930 census, and Nada, for you, then there was actually a 35 and a 40 census that came up. And are these right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was the end of the line.
Huh?
I was the end of the line. It's going to be a long way. So.
So then in one of the hints, and I think Carrie, you maybe it was a name that you had hinted at. You know, when we started going both trees, but that's how I came up with James and Anna.
Mm-hmm.
And then Carrie mentioned the other day about the fact that your grandmother died when your mother was born. And here it's 1890, and it matched up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It did match.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So then as I entered these names, again, there were hints that came up. And as the hints came up, then it just started taking the trees back and back. So there's, if you've seen family trees, you know how many legs there or branches there can be. So I'll try to zoom in as I go up each branch. So we'll start with, which one would you want to start with? Your mom or your dad?
Yes, I would like to start on my mom's because
Okay.
apparently was from Pennsylvania, and I don't know how he ever got over here.
Yeah, both sides of the family were a lot of Quaker.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I've noticed here is, for whatever reason, there's no hints for him, and there's no information except about a birthday and a marriage record.
Mm-hmm.
So, for some reason, this Charles Ross, just one of those that it's kind of it's not a dead end, but it just hasn't been updated with any good hints lately.
Okay.
I mean, there's not even a death date. But the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, coming from there, that was because of the marriage records.
Okay.
There was enough information in the marriage records. So so here's the marriage record. Let's see, which one is it? There it is. So married September 1887, A. Charles Ross and Ellen E. Dunn in Helena.
Right.
And then here is where it says Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I can't remember, I can't read the writing, but it was already translated. And he was a laborer. Let's see, what's that person? The person who married them. Let's see, witnesses. Horace Dunn, who shows up on the tree from Helena, and then whoever this Busher was. So that's how all this information, because a lot of these records were scanned in. So they're,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, and I didn't notice it until now, that Charles didn't have any information on him. One of the things they have is a search tool.
Okay.
And
Might be under Henderson. Henderson C. Ross too. He often
Oh,
that other-
okay.
So, yeah.
So there's like here's some Charles Rosses, and they're born about the same date in Pittsburgh, but then the death, the what throws it off is the death is in Pennsylvania. And it's like, well, okay, why would he have gone, come to Michigan, then gone back? And maybe that is him. Maybe that's him.
Actually,
There's
he
an,
died in the Canadian Northwest. He was up there, and that's where he died.
oh, really?
Yes, he did.
Okay, well, so what we can do is edit.
He was in a Catholic hospital up there. I don't know. That's what I heard. Yeah.
So we'll put that in there like that. And what may happen is over time, that may trigger a hint that'll give some more information. Sometimes in these records, it gives a mother and a father, and that's what's strange. There's very little on these records. It gave the spouse and it gave the name, but it didn't really give his mother and father. So, and I hadn't noticed it before that particular tree didn't go back further, and I'll have to look at that more. But it did verify he was from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So that's what happens more. That's what I run into sometimes. I'll run into one of these and it's like there's just absolutely no more information. It can't go back any further. Don't know why. Was that was that really his name at the time and he changed it, or was it a different name in the beginning? That tends to be what happens sometimes too. Family rifts, and all of a sudden, well, I'm gone. I'm gonna move, and I'll change my name. That wasn't it wasn't trackable like it is nowadays. So his wife, when I started looking, so then let me zoom out just a little bit. So Ellen, who had died, and she was the one that died at childbirth,
right?
Because she died June 8th, 1890, and what there was a death record. A lot of the older Michigan death records and that are out there, and that death record, if you notice on here, it has a birth, has a death, and then it goes up to Horace Dunn.
Yeah.
So that's where her father gets linked together. That, okay, you're pretty sure about dates, and then all of a sudden there's a father. So that's how I got Horace Dunn out of her name. Let's see, this one. Oh, the other one that happens a lot is there's Find a Grave. And in Find a Grave, it's a website where people have gone and documented grave sites, found who else is in the grave site. Then some people will tie those together as being relatives. Well, here's her stone in the Helena Township Cemetery.
Wow.
And in this listed Horace as her father again.
Yes.
So
I noticed on there it did say something about her mother, Anna Hooker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Right. And I think the Anna Hooker, I think if we follow Horace here, I believe, how did I tie them together? Arrival. Somewheres I had them tied together, and it may have been, it was here. So this is the 1860 United States Census record. And in 1860, there was an Anna J and a Horace Dunn, and they were living in Livingston, New York at the time.
That's right. That's where they were married. And Horace Dunn died, and then she remarried.
Oh, yeah, okay. Um,
Horace Dunn was Ella's dad.
and what I do sometimes like that, I don't know, I don't put on the second marriages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily put the person down as a second marriage, only because if you have the biological grandfather or father, and then you have the stepfather, then this stepfather, all of a sudden, that's a whole nother tree that starts going.
Oh, yeah.
And it becomes
Yeah.
that's what's happened with my mom's tree right now. I have so many hints I can't go through them, and it's because there's too many people in it. But this was her death record, and probably, if we look at that, she was a Brown.
Yes.
Was that her?
That was her second marriage.
I'm feeling pretty good. And then there's her father. So then all of a sudden, here's her father.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I picked up the name. Now,
yeah. She was born in England. Yeah.
she was?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. England. And the reason we know that too is 1841 English census, 1851. And then she came over in 1851. She came to the United States. What I always find curious is, okay, she came from England at 16, and it had to be. I mean, it was right. There was a census, and then she left and came over. And how did she find her way in those 9 years? How did she find her way to New York? How did she meet Horace Dunn? But that's some of that we'll never know.
Yeah, well, she came over with her mother and father, and I think a sister, but she already had 2 brothers and a sister over here.
Okay.
So that's how it all got going.
Okay. See, and that's, yeah, you get family that's already come over, and then the other ones follow.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, let's go back to the tree. So the Horace Dunn, because that tree is dead ended here at Christopher. So on Horace Dunn, then his father was Christopher out of New York. And the only reason that's tied in there is because that was the name on Horace's death record. And on the death record for Horace, it said it was Christopher Dunn, born New York. But there's not any more information than that. And again, like the other one, it hasn't given any new hints for that Christopher Dunn. So it's kind of, it dead ends because you don't have enough information to jump back further. But I also didn't do much. I didn't dig into a lot of the searching. Now, so here's one, Christopher Dunn, born 1844, but that wouldn't be right because Horace was born in 1837. So I know that can't be the right Christopher Dunn. It might be a brother or something like that. So it's kind of one of those, you got to kind of search through and start picking dates to find more on those 2 lines.
Mm-hmm. But that's good though. That's all very accurate. Yeah.
So far.
Okay.
So let's go back to the tree. Okay, so the Dunn line, the Ross and the Dunn line, then kind of Peter in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So then the Hooker side, and this one had me. I can tell you, this one had me going at first because I have this, and I'm trying to verify it, but this Susanna King right here, I had a Susanna King in my tree. But the dates were quite a bit off. So maybe somewhere's further back, there's a tie there. And what'll happen is when Nada does her DNA test, if this king was the same king that was in her line, is the same as in mine, then it should show a DNA match.
Huh. Jeez.
Wow.
So on the Hooker side, so we had Robert Hooker. He was born in England and died in Livingston, New York. So that would match up with what you were saying, that they came over with her. So that's so, and he's from Kent, England. And then his father was Mary Rogers, who's a dead end, and then Stephen Hooker. And these are all on this line. This so this would have been 1718 in Kent, England, and he died 1787 in Kent, England. Stephen Hooker. And then I didn't go back. It'll sometimes give you potential. There goes the fireworks. So in this case, it's saying that potentially Stephen Hooker from 1681 in England, and so this is from somebody else's tree. Somebody else has said, "Hey, this is the Stephen Hooker. That's this Stephen Hooker's father." And sometimes I look at him and it's pretty clear cut that, yeah, okay, it matches up. And then other times I'll just let him sit there waiting for something to give me a hint on this one, because I don't want to just jump at it and say, "Oh yeah, that's the right one," and then find out that the father is the brother or something like that. So in this case, what happens in England, these dates actually came from somebody else's tree, the birth dates and the death dates. But here's that here's the Stephen Hooker, and you get records from England that'll say, just give names, not necessarily dates, but it'll give names, so you can start tying names and testing things. There's been times where I've had to go back and delete records because I didn't feel they were right. So, shoot, I took it too far back. So profile, let me look at him. There it is. So birth, baptism. So what happens, they don't always tell you in England the birth, but they give you the baptism. And the problem, and what I haven't done enough research on, is if it's the Church of England, it's usually within days of the birth that they're baptizing them. Kind of like Catholic Church, I believe, is like that, right? The baptism happens fairly soon. So this record gave Stephen Hooker, male, baptism date and a location, and then gave a father and a mother. And as you can see, the mother doesn't mean anything for maiden name. They don't put maiden names on them usually. And that's why she doesn't have a maiden name right now, just because there's not enough there. And then marriage records, same thing. England has a lot of their records out, so you can see Stephen Hooker married Mary Rogers in Headcorn, Kent, England, in 1784. I don't know which one this one is. Oh, that's a child. So this is the child, another child of Stephen that was married in Kent. Let's see. So that's the Hooker line. That's that line. Now let's go. Oops, I wanted to do the mother and father. So King line, again, I didn't dig any further back on the King line yet, but it ends with Benjamin King and Mary Fansett. Those two were married, and they were the mother and father of Susanna King. And as you see, some of these lines just stop, and it's only because I haven't gone into these potential mothers and fathers. And then I don't know if any Fansett or King or Ralphie. I don't know if any of those names sound familiar.
No.
This is when it starts getting harder to look on the screen because all of a sudden these two people just exploded based on where they're from and who they are. So just go back. Let's see, just to give you an idea. So we're still following this line here. That's the line we've been following going up.
Yeah.
And then Fansett, and then Ralph. And this is I don't remember which line it was. One of these lines. Okay, so you get back. That one's not. So if we look at him, Sussex, England. Some of what was happening was there was a lot of other ancestral trees that people had that I had enough information that it looked like it was good enough to use some of the information they had. And some of the marriages, the births were tied together. So when you look at this is information that was gleaned from another person's family tree. Bombed on it. Okay. Anyway, so that's how these lines keep going up. So back here, this Thomas Rolfe. Now notice the name spellings changed.
Yes, they do.
Yes. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because that's how the priest felt that day or what. The same thing happens in the United States Census taking in the early days. Give you an example, like my family has Starks in it, but at one point it was Stark, no S. But then all of a sudden an S was added to it, and it's like, why is an S added to it? But an S was added to it. And some of it, they also said, like the Wales, the Welsh people, or even in England, it had to do with the region they were from and how those spellings were made. When you get into the Welsh, it really gets weird because it's like no last name. It's the daughter of somebody or the son of somebody who's the son of a son of son of son of son of. There's never a last name there to go on. And then all of a sudden, the one that was the most recent one, all of a sudden has their last name is their father's first name. So they grabbed their father's first name and that became their name. But this Thomas Rolfe, that's back to 1595 in England.
Amazing.
So
anything available back that far.
the what?
Amazing anything would be available back that far.
Yeah, well, certain countries, like the English records are very good. They have a lot of their birth records and that have all been saved. You get into the Germanys or the Prussias and Poland, and those records just, and unless somebody hid them away during the wars, they're gone. So let's see, where was this one? Okay, so Mary Weston, here it is. So this is the line that I think it is. So trying to, it's a different way of looking at it here. Let me go to the home. All right. Yeah, it's a little, maybe, I don't know. Can you see it pretty good there?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's you, Nada. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Hmm.
7,
Oh, wow.
8, 9. This would be 9 here. 10. That's 10 generations.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
11, 12. So it goes back to on that side. It goes back 12 generations.
Yeah.
Willard goes back 13 generations, 1500 in England. It's pretty heavy. It's all basically English on this particular tree. It's all English. There was one person. It was married from the French.
Hmm.
So, and I think it's this. Is it this Doggett? Let me see. 1481. He's from Suffolk, England. Coat of arms. So the reason I think like certain lines is because of what their ranking was in society, who they were. Were they a lord? Were they a landowner?
Hmm.
They definitely weren't the blacksmith working in the local village.
Yeah, it does not. Hmm. Wow.
So that side of the tree, that's basically 12 or 13 generations back.
Gosh, yeah.
Cool.
That's really a long time.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and these all ended here. Willard. So that would be, let's see if we go back to you. So that would be your mom's side. That's her history
Yes.
back, all the way back.
Mhm. Mhm.
So then on your father's side,
Yes, you're probably going to have a lot.
that one was fun. Uh, so um, I'll start with the Harris line
Okay.
because it dead ends so far, and not sure why. Now, see, there's a couple of hints here that I haven't looked at yet, but basically, it goes your father,
Right.
grandfather, great grandfather, great great, 3 times great, 4 times great, and when I get to him, it stalls.
Hmm.
I haven't been able to get by him yet, and he was born in North Carolina.
Hmm.
The Harris line originates in North Carolina. It also originates with the Quakers in North Carolina,
Hmm.
which, you know, you always think, I always thought, oh, Pennsylvania, that's where the Quakers are, Pennsylvania. And there was a lot in your dad's family tree that Quaker, North Carolina, some Pennsylvania, but then also Indiana type thing. So,
Indiana was where a lot of them were.
yep, and you'll see that here shortly with one of the other lines of that tree. But it's kind of funny because the Harris side, it just, and when we go and we look at his profile,
Mhm.
here's the 1790 census, and he's in North Carolina. His birth, there's this thing called the American Geological Biological Index, and so it was George Harris, North Carolina. It just says that hey, he was born there. Um, and that was the date of birth probably comes from one of the censuses because it tells you how old he was on censuses. And so if you take and people, I don't know, people must have lied about their age quite a few times because sometimes it bounces all over the place. You know, it's the same person and it bounces around. But it was pretty consistent. He was in North Carolina, North Carolina. The only thing I'm having a problem with here is at this point he's 90 and 100 years old,
Wow.
and so then I'm a little concerned that it's getting mixed with his son, who was also a George Harris,
So that's
and
grandfather, great grandfather, then probably.
that was on your side. That would have been, let's see, grandfather, great, yes. And see, there's three Georges: George. And anytime you get three of them that are the same,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, can't you just name your kid something different?
Yeah.
But in this case, there was a Willis in here too. That kind of threw it off a little bit. So it was a break point on dates, which helped. But these two, I think a couple of their census records are mixed. I used to have a death date for him, and I took it off because, man, living to 100 back then, I'm not.
Right.
That's an oddity. I mean, that's so I took it off. I figure one day it'll give me a hint. So then let's see. So this line didn't go anywhere yet. The Hawkins, that was George's wife, and the Davis, who would have been your, let's see, great grandmother and great grandfather. Well, the great grandmother, there's nothing going beyond hers right now. I didn't go into these potential fathers just time wise.
Grandfather there, that George Harris, his wife's name was Priscilla Cook.
Was it?
Yes.
Well,
And in her, across that, her name was Priscilla Cook. I knew her first name was Priscilla, but I had found out that it was Cook. And then after that, let's see.
and
Think of here, because I have.
so, and then the laws is right, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's that. I'll tell you that the Harris side was interesting just because of where it took us. I mean, so Priscilla Cook here. Let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here let's see, make sure I counted right. So from you, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this line here is 7 generations. And this is from Cheshire, England, and died in Pennsylvania. And this was a Quaker line. In Pennsylvania, most of them on that side were all Quakers. Mary Underwood, she was born in Pennsylvania, and she actually ended up dying, it looked like, in South Carolina. But let's see, Cook. So then again, like this, this one, I think there was a record. One of these in Carrie, when you go in here and you can look at the hints that were accepted, but also the gallery. And on a couple of these lines, and it's not this one, obviously. There are some books that people have written about families. And this is what somebody had written, and it was out of a book of Peter Cook, and it listed family members, and that kind of thing. Now, I haven't read this to go back further on Peter's, but one of these, some of these that people have written, then give you information that help track back the lineage. I thought it was the Cook line that had one of those. Oh, here it is, right here. So here's one of those books that it's the North America Family History, 1500s to 2000 for Thomas Cook. But what it does is, as you read these, you start getting the names of who married who and who their fathers were. And these were if we go back page 1. Oops. So this was the Plymouth Meeting House. That's what happens is a lot of these records. And so it happens that the Cook family ends up being in this family's generation somehow. But it gives you enough information to find out who their mom and dads were. And also notice this, the Genealogical Society of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one that has this and scanned it in. They do a lot of scanning of the historical records. So let's see. Let's see where these take us right now. John Mills, Beals. So here, if this was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1550, England, Lincolnshire, England. I'll be surprised if yours doesn't come back heavy with just English as your DNA. That'll be.
Yeah, would be. I had heard they were from Wales, but that.
One part of the family, I think, on your side was. Let's see. Is there? That's not the line I was looking for. These end. Okay, laws. So then, if we go to your grandmother, your grandmother's side. So that was her, James Law, who was born in West Virginia and died in Traverse City in 36.
Right. Yes, he did. He was in the state hospital down there.
It did. Okay. So when we look at his profile and we go down, here's his death record. That's not it. That's this one. So here again, James Sampson Laws gives his birth date. And that's where it helps when there's more information about on the death records, because then also it gave his mother and his father.
Yeah.
And it gave his child, which then starts tying things together. So whenever we have the find graven at it actually helps because it starts really tying in the trees. He was, so it was interesting because this is when he was, come on, click. So he was born in West Virginia. At age of 5, the family had moved to Indiana, where he married in Indiana. And they were there 1900, 1910, 1920, and then 1930, they show up in Antrim. But at this point, he's widowed and he's living with his father-in-law.
That's true. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, his daughter had passed away, and so his father-in-law.
Okay.
That was true. Mhm. Yeah.
I feel pretty good. It means the information's not too bad. So,
That's it. Yeah. You know,
so
I wasn't around when a lot of this happened. I just heard bits and pieces along the way, and yeah, but I know he was a good man, but yeah, he liked his horses, I guess. He liked them.
so, like in this case, yeah, he was let's see, when we look at that 1930s record where it said father-in-law, that probably means he was living with,
Lewis.
yeah, he was living with Lewis and Althea,
Mhm.
and he was yeah, so that's why he was the father-in-law. Yep. So, all right. So then on the laws side, Virginia, and it's kind of funny because so from somewheres after Indiana, James goes to Michigan and his dad goes to Missouri,
Hmm.
which was let's see how that worked. So here they're in Indiana together, and then it split and went to Iowa. It was almost like he moved back and forth, but he may have been, and maybe some of that's not quite right. The names were right and the death records were right, it seemed like. So maybe he was moving to other children and moving around to the children at the time of the census. Um, there's one of the censuses on my side, they show being in New York, and then I couldn't find them in Michigan. I couldn't find where they were at. And then I found them the next census, which is every 10 years.
Hmm.
And somewhere along the line, I found, somebody mentioned about a sister of my great grandfather, and I looked, and she was living in Southwest Michigan.
Hmm.
Well, then all of a sudden, I found him in that same census next door to her, and they had spelled the name wrong.
Oh, well, these people only had the two daughters, and the one had died when she was young. I don't
Okay.
So that's why they ended up here with their daughter, and then the daughter died. So then the son-in-law had him until he.
Okay. So let's see, Reverend James, Delaware,
Hmm.
and Ohio. Again, these are those Quaker, a lot of Quaker records.
Oh, okay.
Um, let's go back. Judge. Let's see where this goes. Okay. So then 1636, here's your Wales
Mm-hmm.
and John Lewis Laws. Is it opening? Yeah. John Lewis Laws, somewheres probably with his parents, they moved to the Virginia colony when he was 15 in 1651.
Wow. Hmm.
And the death was New Kent, or New Kent, Virginia, which makes sense. They tended to, you have Kent, England, you have New Kent, USA.
Oh. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's where the laws that's where the laws kind of ended, was there. I didn't find anything yet on the father on that, but there was he was a captain, and he was from Maryland to Maryland, so he was somewheres in the line. They were in Maryland at some point,
Hmm.
and but he was a sea captain.
Wow.
Let's see, and then Dawson. Dawson's the one that gets good. I was trying to remember which one it was. Okay, so Dawson, that's, let's see, that would be your great grandmother, Rosa Dawson.
Oh, okay.
Rosa and James were married, and that was Althea's mom and dad.
Yes.
So Rosa was your great grandmother,
Hmm.
and then Cornelius Dawson was married to a Lavina Boone,
Hmm.
and when I saw the Boone name, then I had to know. So I started looking on the day. Uh, I started looking for the raccoon hat, and I found it. So I don't remember where Daniel is. Let's see, what's his birthday? 1736. I think. Let's go into his profile. So, yeah, it's this one. Siblings. So, Samuel Boone had Squire Boone. This Squire Boone, who would be like a something great uncle, that's Daniel Boone's father.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
There's Daniel. There's old Daniel Boone right there.
Yeah.
And the only reason I left him on the tree was because it's Daniel Boone. So it was one of those when I saw that Upton Boone and then Samuel Boone, and it's like, wait a second now, okay, where are we at? Well, and that's where it came out. So this Boone family tree, and then you start. This is where you'll have probably a little bit of the the name starts looking Frenchish.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So let me see what year. Let's count them again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So your 10th generation is French on your let's see, that was Rosa's. On your great grandmother's side is French. So that, and then and they were there as they still came to Pennsylvania. They came to Germantown at some point. So there's I'm trying to remember. Yeah, this castle was from Germany. And they were located in Germantown, which is Philadelphia. That's the Philadelphia region. So this side of your family was located in Germantown. So not sure how a girl in Philadelphia got mixed up with a boy, and well, he was in that same area, but he was from Devon, England. So the English and the German got together there somehow. But these were tracking pretty good. I mean, the Boone side kind of died out here, but there's, because of the nature of the Boone family, there's still some documents that can be researched and dug into deeper to go back further. Let's see, De La Plaine, is that the one? No. Yeah, and then these all kind of peter out here. Hughes, I don't remember how far back Hughes went. Let's see, Hughes. Oh, yeah, this one got. Okay, so here's your Boone side, right? George Boone the third, George Boone the second, George Boone. All right, now this one threw me off And I had to check it because it's like, no, that can't be right. But so Jane Folk Hughes has George Boone the fourth and the third in her family line.
Hmm.
So these two were kissing cousins. Yeah. So anyways, it didn't, when it came up with this name, this Hannah Boone here, it's like, what? And then George Boone, well, no. And then sure enough, there was George the third. And so somehow something was going on between the two cousins. That's probably the skeleton in the closet.
That must be it. That's the one they never talked about.
That's the one they never talk about. Yep, don't talk about that one. So the tree that was interesting, that got even more interesting than Daniel Boone, was this Hughes line, the John Hughes. So let's go back here again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so we're back to 11 on this line here. Now, this line, this Edward Folk, remember I was talking about the Welch and how they named their children?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Folk, son of Lloyd.
Oh.
That's Folk, son of Thomas Lloyd.
Hmm.
But he called himself Edward Folk. But that wasn't, if that's the case, Folk Lloyd was actually his father's name, but then he took his father's first name as his last name.
Hmm.
And it is documented that way. In this particular line out of Wales, there's several documents that all had it listed the same way. That for whatever reason he took his father's name when he came to the U.S. Maybe the wherever he was located, maybe that's how they perceived it, because in the U.S. we don't say Folk, son of Thomas, son of, that's just not how we do it. So maybe somebody gave him that, or he took it and said, yeah, that's the name I'll take. And that's kind of how some of the documents read that way. So this tree right here, so this was 11. This was 12, 13, 14, 15.
Still going.
And that's, let's see, 15, 22, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Now, these names, there's no dates on them, only because those names were in a book that had that family tree line. That's how that family tree was listed. And it's, and like I say, see how it's David, son of, AP is son of this guy. This guy is the son of Gruffudd or whatever it is. So that's how that tree goes back into Wales. So early Welsh line. Lowry was, now in this it's daughter of, son of Lowry. And then let's see, Owen Tudor. Does that make, have you heard that name before?
No.
The Tudor family? The Kings?
Oh, I suppose.
The royal line?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thomas, son of Lilian, or whatever it is. His mother was Eleanor de Bar. whose mother was Eleanor of England, Countess of Bar. That's 1269. Who was the daughter of King Edward the First,
Oh,
1239.
yeah. Wow.
Who's the son of King Henry the Third, 1207.
Gosh. Still going on.
1160, King John, King Henry, and then Geoffrey Count, but here's Empress Matilda, which is 1102. And then you get into Scotland.
Oh my gosh. They really got around, didn't they?
1079,
Oh,
1031, 1016, Edward the Exile. Obviously, he did something wrong.
I think so.
And that's as far back as I took it. So,
Goodness sakes, I guess so. Wow.
so let's see. Let's go back. I can't remember what count we're at now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33.
Wow. Oh my.
And when you get the thing that's nice is because this is the royal line here, it makes it really easy because the English have all kinds of documentation on these lines, and there's multiple books about them, and let's see. So this, yeah. So King Edward, I think this is the one.
89.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see. That's what was fun, Nada, because
Oh my.
when when you get to some of these and they're dead ends, it's like, oh man, and then you hit a line like this, and all of a sudden one of the books or one of the references will come up, and it's like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes, and this one just went and kept going, and actually it'll go back. It could even go back further if somebody were to go in and start researching Edward the Exile. You would find that there's going to be somebody here, probably somebody here, because he was there. I think the story was he was during one of the battles back at that point, and he was kicked out, whatever. So, but yeah, that makes it quite a line. In the I think it's where is it? Carleton. I can't remember which line it is, Carrie. I'd have to go back and look again. Because one of these lines goes, I don't know why it's not coming up. Come on, just find it. Oh, it's not finding it right now. Anyways, those two trees come together at Carrie and Dan. They start out at the same place and then come together, but I can't. Which line was it? I don't remember which line it was now. Oh well. But that's how it works. I think it's King Edward, and like on Penny's and mine, she's from the son and I'm from the bastard daughter. And the two trees do the same thing. It's here, and then 22 generations later, boom, you're together again.
Jeez.
So that is better than the two kissing cousins, I will say that. So
Oh, gosh, wow, this is really something. All that information, my goodness sake.
what I'd like to know is, where's my castle?
Yeah, no doubt.
Right.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it was quite interesting because first you have the kissing cousins, and then it goes all the way back into Wales,
Yeah.
and it was interesting. It was pretty interesting tree,
Oh my
and it all starts at this person right here.
God. Yep, that's right. Yeah.
So,
It's,
so it is pretty interesting. I mean,
there's
the
something.
way it goes back and the way it picks together.
Oh, your grandfather's middle name?
Yeah, my grandfather it was Lewis. It said Ben one. I knew it was Lewis B. Harris, but I didn't know what the name was.
Ben
B-E-N.
one.
Yeah, I had never heard that name before. Yeah.
That, there's some of these names like that. I thought maybe it was a misspelling or something. I've never heard of Ben one.
Well, my dad's middle name is odd enough, Flavius.
Flavius. Yeah, and see, that was what's neat to find out is probably because I'm just an engineer and I like making sure, but it's interesting to know that actually is correct, and I had found that on records. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and I can't remember, I don't think I found her middle name. Yeah, it's listed as L a couple times, but I never found what her middle name was.
Yeah.
So see, it always lists it as L Laws.
Okay.
But and then I got to thinking, well, her father was James L. Laws, so maybe her middle name. But see, that's how things get messed up because his was actually James Sampson Laws. So somebody, and we got to remember, some of these records, they're being taken from handwritten and translated, transcribed from the handwriting, and some of those L's and S's
Yeah.
don't look right. They just let's see. You can really, when you look at the census records, there it is.
Yes.
Okay, so there's Althea Laws, and they had a servant who was a farm labor servant. So let's see if I go back to here. Where's the mom and dad? That's Althea. That's not the right one to look at then. Go back to James. There we go. So see how that L,
Yeah.
that almost looks like, the in cursive S is almost that same thing as how whoever this person was writing an L.
Beautiful.
And then
Yes.
like here, James S. Laws, well, the S and the L are so close together.
Yes. Yeah.
So what they allow you to do on these records is if we thought, if we thought it was wrong and it was supposed to be like James L. Laws, you can go in here and you can actually ask to get it corrected. And the reason for correcting it is just a transcription error. So that's how a lot of these records get corrected.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah. And you can also see how things start to change on the names. But I don't remember. I don't think. Let's see. Go back here. Thomas. No, maybe it's him. 1800. Some of the early census records were really messy. Basically, it. We can look at it here this way. Oops. Move that out of the way. So, where is he at? There he is. So here's James Law. There's the township. Why can't I scroll across? Well, these old records, and it doesn't have a heading, so that's what's going on. Let me see if the next one has a heading. It's not being very useful. Come on, give me a heading. All these numbers in these columns mean something. And it depends on what county and what district they were from, how those. Yeah, it's not going to tell me.
One more page.
No more pages, no headers. I was trying to find one. Let's see, maybe there's one here. No, this is not going to show it in this family tree here. Let's. Which one?
Abraham Steiner would have been Carl's grandfather.
Yep. That it shows both. Like on my tree, I had these separated already, starting with my mom and dad type thing. Yours were still together, so yeah, this was Carl's whole tree. Oh shoot, which one was it? I wanted to find one of those examples because it's interesting to look at. Is it Samuel? Maybe Samuel has one.
He made up to me, and he was really, oh yeah, he could smell his brother, I think.
Okay, so here's, I did the same thing. They didn't put any headers on them.
Nope.
Well, that's a bummer because I wanted to show you what the headers said. This one doesn't even have it. Gee whiz. Anyways, those headers tell you how many free white women from 0 to 5, 6 to like 18, and older than that, and then free white men, and then slaves. And somewheres in one of these, I can't remember if it was the Boone. I don't think it was your side. I think it was up here on this side. Somewheres when it gets back into about this generation in here, it looks like there's one that shows up down in North Carolina. But it's interesting how they label it. And I've watched that Gates on Finding Your Roots.
Oh yes, I watch that all the time.
And you know how he comes up and he starts talking about the slaves and well, your daddy owned so many slaves, and I always wondered. Well, then I started finding the records that would show how many there were, and it seems like in one of the, I can't remember if it was yours or Carl's, there was something written about when they lived in Maryland, and when they made their move, that was the end of ownership. That's when they got rid of the slave. And I can't remember which side it was, and it was one of these family stories that somebody's written. So how true it is, who knows? But
I have heard that there was one side or the other that had helped slaves escape with an underground.
Yes.
And I don't know which one, but I had heard stories about
Yeah,
that.
you were telling us, Chris, about that.
Yeah, but I can't remember which side it was. And I can't remember what person's record it's in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Um
Oh,
it,
Huh.
yeah.
it
So,
might have been the Boone side,
mhm.
but it seems like there was somebody in North Carolina.
Mhm.
It's not that one.
Hmm. But
Not
anyhow,
that one.
yeah, it had come down through the years, so it could have been.
There was okay, so like when Dan does his DNA,
Mhm.
what you expect to see is you'll see the English, the Wales, those things. But what we should see also is Switzerland.
Definitely, yes, yeah.
That was from Carl's side. There should be some Swiss that show up on his. How
Mhm.
I don't know how that shows up, if it's like Middle Europe or whatever, however it shows up, but it should show up that way on his DNA.
I know his grandmother's name was Marie. I see a Marie Moser up there. I don't know
Yeah.
what her maiden name was.
Marie, this is his grandmother,
Oh, I
Louise Weidelson,
would be very, yeah. Mhm.
and she was out of Bern, Switzerland.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
So his DNA should show, I would think. But the problem with the DNA is you get 50 from your mother, 50 from their father.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next generation gets 50 from your mother, 50 from your father, and it keeps decaying
Mm-hmm.
the amount. But he should have I would think he would have pretty strong Swiss showing up.
Yeah.
Just based on this whole history over here, it's pretty heavy. At least the Steiner side
Yes.
is heavy Switzerland, and it makes sense because here, here's Bern, would be great, or I don't know, it'd be Dan would be Dan's great grandfather, three greats, right?
Yeah.
Yep. No, I'm sorry. No, great grandfather was from Switzerland, but then, great grandma was from Switzerland too.
Yeah.
So the families may have known each other when they came over. Um, that in the process of getting here, they went Switzerland to Ohio, and then Ohio to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So that 1900 there's no 1890 records for census. Those were destroyed in a fire.
Mm.
So there's no records. Michigan has a set of 1895 records, but U.S. records, there are no 1890 censuses. It's just like the Korean War. There's no Korean War, very little records for people who fought in the Korean War. And it was because they were destroyed in a fire.
Oh, gosh.
So like my uncle Paul, I looked for, I can't find any records. I know he was there. I know what he did there, but I can't find anything historical related to that. So, Nada, that's your family tree.
Thank you. Yes, let's go.
I like talking to royalty.
Yeah.
Just don't let it go to Andy's head that she's a princess.
He's the one that should curtsy.
Queen Nada.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's what I've heard Dan call you before too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It really is. Yeah. And, get into all of that. Gee whiz, it's just a lot.
Yeah. So Carrie, and now that you have access to it and you can log in, you can go to any one of these people on the tree.
Okay.
And when you say you want to know more about Upton Boone,
Yeah.
you click on it and it gives you a profile, a search, and a quick edit. Now, you don't have, I can give you editing rights, but I didn't do that. But you can go to the profile.
I've gone into that. Yep.
Okay. And when you go into that, there's facts and gallery.
So I must have
Gallery.
my story. Okay. I didn't realize there were other. Okay.
Okay. So life story, I didn't type in, the computer generates that.
Right. And
It's based off the facts,
correct.
just the facts, Jack. So that's where all this information comes from, and that's from all these, which you can look at all these also. But when you go into the gallery, some of the items are the same, like the censuses, they'll be in there. But like this, there's an ownership map for Boone, and so somewheres he's on this ownership map, and this was for Harrison County, Indiana, in 1882. So somewheres Boone is on here, and it shows where his property was.
Okay.
Then there's this North American family history for Upton Boone, and this is the Boone family. So this is where, and this is quite long. It's 723 pages. So you can print the particular pages you want, but that's where a lot of people have gotten their information from. And you know, documents like this, for the most part, I think are pretty accurate because somebody has spent a lot of time generating it. There's only been a few times that I've read that somebody comes back and just says, there's no way this document can be right, one of these books. And you find that somebody tried to force it into the king line, into the royalty line. And so they made a huge assumption over here, and it took them to the royalty side. And it's like, oh, that must be it. And then now that with all the other documents we have in that, it kind of, don't know about that. Like the one that's for the Carlton side, that big long tree that somebody had. See, I have pictures of that, and I've been using that to create that tree and verify things. So it gives me a name, and then I can take that name and verify, oh, yep, that's right, or no, that can't be right. And then it may just knock away the whole tree. So, but anytime you want to look at anything, that's and to explode the tree, that's what these arrows do. These arrows explode it or retract it, so you can suck the whole tree back.
How'd you get into this view? Because you were in a vertical view, and now
Right here.
just over here. Okay, but all right.
So this view is the vertical. This is this one, and it's hard to look at. It's easy when you're doing research.
Okay.
And doing one tree at a time. But this view here.
Yeah, I like that one better.
Yeah, because it keeps it, and it's much easier to scroll around. And you just click the left mouse button, and it allows you to drag.
Okay.
I saw a name on there that reminded me. I didn't know for sure what Carl's dad's middle name was. I knew his name was Marshall S, and I saw it's Saul.
Saul.
Well, Marshall Saul.
Yep.
And I knew I'd heard that before.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was his middle name.
Huh. Chris, you did a good job.
Boy, I'll say.
Like I say, some of the trees work out fairly easy, and then others, some of them I just let them sit when they're dead ends. I just let them sit, hoping that a hint would come along. And the other thing is, some of those later ones, there's, well, here, I'll show you. Let's see, what's hers. Okay. So under her, there's a hint. And the hint is ancestry members trees. So the trees that I've created so far are private. So they don't show up as hints, but other people have left theirs public.
Okay.
And so when we review this hint, we find out that the Smith family tree has Ann Williston with John and Mary as her mother and father. Well, we have John, but I don't have Mary yet. and then they may have records. So then I can go into their family tree. So now I'm going into this. See, it says Smith family tree here.
Mhm.
So I've gone into their public tree that they have on to see what they have for records.
Okay.
So I can look at their gallery, and then if I decide, well, if I look at this one, and if I were to read through this, and let's see, well, there's Ann Willis, who married George Bryn Harris. So this document is a good document for Ann Williston.
Mhm.
So then I can go over here and I can go save. Find Williston. And now I'm back at my tree because it says Dewey here.
Okay.
And this document is now listed under Ann
Okay.
with history.
Okay.
The other thing you can do is when you look at these hints, like these trees, which sometimes I'll do because it just quickens up the pace. I can check mark this if it looks like, oh, you know, they might not be too far off. That looks pretty close. It has George, has actually two Georges, so one must have died early or had a different name. These were all their kids supposedly. This one pretty much looked the same way, but usually the first tree is the best one. So I can go in here and review the selected tree, and then it starts giving me information from their tree compared to my tree. So here it's talking about the marriage date. Well, I already had the marriage date, so I don't want that. So I can just uncheck it. It gave me a birthplace. Oh, okay. Well, I'll leave that in. That might be interesting later. Here they gave another marriage date for some reason. Then I give a death date. Well, my Ann Williston, I didn't have a birth or a death location. And this person's family tree has it. So it's possible if I add this in that all of a sudden it'll start giving more hints for her later on. And then this is her father. And according to this, he was born in Virginia, was what the record they must have found somewheres. So that's how you start building the tree a little quicker. But you do have to be careful because I learned early on not to trust.
Okay.
So,
Huh.
well, I hope it helped you.
Oh, yeah, it sure did. It was really interesting. Yeah, that was good. I learned some things too.
Yes, Queen Nada.
Yeah.
Your wish is my command.
Yeah, it was really great. I really appreciate that because I've been interested in this, and I had never really seen it like all this, but all that information there. Oh my word!
And I remember when I in school having to do a family tree in school and sitting there with a pencil and paper. Okay, who's this person or who's this person? And it went back like 2 or 3 generations, kind of, and that was the end of it. I couldn't go any further back.
Mhm.
And now I look at my tree and it's like I wouldn't have had enough paper.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Crazy the information out there.
And I think it's what I find interesting too is that for some reason some families just don't talk about their history. There's just no discussion about ancestors and where they came from and you know why they came over. My great grandma, she wrote a book, or her memoirs, and because of that, I was able to find actually who her father was and go further back on that line because of her thing, and it all matched up. Yes, it was a different Civil War prison, but the fact that there was a a brother that lived, a brother that died in a prison
Mm.
with the name Ormsby. It's like, okay. And then I found him in the Civil War records. But back before this little computer thing, nah.
No way. Mm.
So, but
Yeah.
well, is Princess Andy around?
Princess Andy is downstairs playing ping pong. Let's not
And
use that
and
prefix anymore, okay?
and Prince Brett.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they're gonna inherit the castle, you know.
That's not the kind of castle I want. I want one that has the, the ramparts on each end of it and standing up, and that I can shoot a bow and arrow from.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Very good. Very good.
Oh.
Wow. Well, thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
If you have any questions on it, just let me know. And
Yeah. I'll keep in touch with the.
well, the DNA thing. If I think it's activated at this point.